Hello, my name is Lisa and you've landed on Soulful Spinning. This is my little channel on YouTube where I talk about my creative endeavors with fiber, mainly knitting and spinning, but sometimes weaving and other fiber arts. Today is the 7th of April 2023 and it is Good Friday here, and I'm coming to you right outside of Chicago in the Midwest of the United States. I hope whenever you see this and wherever you are, you're well and you enjoy the episode. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about some of my recent hand spinning. I have a finished object, a couple of works in progress, a couple of acquisitions, and finally a book review of two books that really are on both sides of the spinning spectrum. One being sort of this true woolen fast spinning, and the other one being very fine lace worsted spinning. So I want to talk about both those books today. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm so glad you're here, and as always, thank you so much for continuing to support the channel and making comments and reaching out to me. I really appreciate it. I'm the Soulful Spinner on Instagram. You can private message me there and see what I'm up to. I'm not posting all that often, maybe once or twice a week. And you can also email me at soulfulspinning@gmail.com if you're not able to make comments and you'd like to make a comment, reach out. All right, so without further ado, what shall I talk about first? Well, I think my girl just came down. I think what I'll talk about is the little sweater I just completed. So yesterday I completed a whole sweater. And here it is. It's a little sweater for a teddy bear. What possessed me to make such a silly thing? Well, I was in my stash room. I have an extra bedroom in the house, but it's full of fiber and fabric and fleece. And I was going in there the other day. I was looking for my little sewing machine. I have a little featherweight sewing machine from 1952, and I knew it was in there somewhere. And I saw this guy here. I'm calling him Charlie because I don't know. He looks like a Charlie to me. And this was a bear that I bought my son, a couple decades ago. And I don't think he really played with it that much. It's just it's nothing special. It's just typical bear made in China, but it is completely safe for children of all ages. It has no buttons or anything that can cause any problems. So I saw this little. Actually, he was laying in a basket of Romney wool, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make him a sweater. I follow a few people on Instagram that make toys. Fran of Woolen Hearted is a bear maker. I follow this lady, I think she's in Germany, where she makes Waldorf dolls, and I'm always fascinated by those kinds of things. So I thought, I have some extra hand spun laying around, a lot of extra hand spun. So I made this little sweater. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and I will post a link. I don't remember the name of it. I think it's just a rolled sweater for a bear or something like that. And I just thought it was fun to make it out of hand spun. So I used these two yarns. This is some Shetland from a roving that I spun up. I made my Newfoundland mittens out of this with some Romney. So I had that laying around. And then I had this tiny skein of this yarn, which I thought it was fin. I thought it was a gray fin that I have in my stash, but I don't think it is because it's not the same color. So it's some sort of mystery fiber. It's a pretty caramely brown, light tan color. And so I cast on with my double pointed needles, which I love. I love double pointed needles, size 8. I think I cast on 36 stitches. And it's a little rolled collar. And then you do these rapid increases. And then you pick up around, much like you do the thumb of a mitten to make the sleeves. And I just winged it. I just did, some decreases. I did a little garter stitch edge on the sleeves and on the bottom because I didn't want it to roll. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So you want to put it on them? I want to put it on them. I washed and blocked it last night and put it in the bathroom to dry, and it dried really, really quickly. I know it's a silly thing to do, isn't it? I've recently retired. Well, actually, I retired from school teaching last year at the end of the school year, 2022. And I've been having just a ton of fun. And my husband, who's still working, says to me, he goes, "You are just having the most fun, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of am." So here it is. Here's Charlie with his sweater. And I think it fits him quite well, and he looks smashing in his little hand spun jumper. So it's taking this somewhat common kind of little stuffed bear and making him extra special. So isn't he cute? So now I'm thinking of making him a quilt. I recently, I've been following a couple of knitters and spinners who also sew, and I have been, one of them is Sarah from Fiber Trek, is a beautiful quilter and sewist, but she's been quilting, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun just to make a little quilt and piece it together on my featherweight and hand stitch it for Charlie the bear and make him a whole set of accessories too. Maybe make him a hat. My husband says now he needs socks. How about you? Do you make toys? Do you enjoy it? I don't have any grandchildren yet, but I can always put this away for future grandchildren. Yeah, sewing is something I did probably 10 or 12 years ago. I made a few quilts, a small one for my mother, lap quilt, and then I made a big one for my son, just great big squares, and I just quilted it on my, I have a Janome Memory Craft. It's an early model. I think it's 6600 maybe. Starts with a 6. And I have it in a table and everything, and I have to say it's just been sitting there and I haven't used it for a long time. But I mean, I think that's what's great about following makers, because you get inspired to try things on your own and maybe you wouldn't really think of doing. So I think that's the main thing I get out of social media. The good thing I get out of social media is just the inspiration to do different crafts. So yeah, so that was my big project of the week. Of course, it took me away from the I have two small projects I've been working on. I've been working on this hat. This is a hat made out of handspun. This wool is a CVM fleece that I purchased some time ago and spun up a sweater quantity. It's a 2-ply woolen spun yarn. And then this is gray CVM from another shepherd. I think this one is from Fiddle Knoll Farms, which I don't think she's selling anymore. And I think this one was from Iron Water Ranch. It was a gray fleece that I still have more of course. And I want to make Jennifer Steingass's pattern, the arboreal jumper. And I thought I would test out the colorwork pattern with a little hat. So the only thing that I wish I had done is I wish I had extended the stems of these leaves into the ribbing of the hat. I guess I wasn't really thinking. I just went to the chart and just looked where the increases stopped, and then I started knitting. I thought about doing duplicate stitch, but there's 10 leaves. That's a lot of ends to weave in, and it's really just a little cap that I might wear walking the dog. So I don't think I'm going to do that. I've been knitting straight up, and then what I'm going to do is do another inch in the brown and then do some rapid decreases and wash and block it and take some gauge measurements. I'm knitting it on a US 4.5, which is a 7. And I think my gauge might be a slightly tighter than what's called for in the pattern. No, I think it's a little bigger. So I'll have to figure it out, but I'll wash and block it, and yeah, I should get this done very, very soon. I think this is a great idea to make a swatch cap. with the pattern that you're thinking about for a larger project, because you'll know if you think you like the pattern and you like how it's working up, and it's not a huge investment of time, only to find out later on that you don't really like the sweater and so on. So I'm working on that, and that's a hand spun project. And I've been working on socks. I'm not a great sock knitter. I think I've made 3 pairs of socks. Yeah, I made 2 pairs that are DK worsted weights. I made 1 pair of hand spun, which I actually have over here. I don't actually think I've shown these to you. These are some hand spun socks out of a braid of superwash merino nylon. And I love my woodland sock blockers. I made these and I haven't even worn them. It's like a sport weight chain plied sock yarn that I made. So I made those, and then I made these with the Carrie sock make-along last year, I think. I took these camping, and I realized I have a drop stitch, so I have to repair that. And these are out of hand spun. I think this is an alpaca mohair silk blend. And then the red is from a bat from Dakota Carding and Wool. I think it's her Cardinals blend. So those are nice and warm and toasty. And I have to say, these are so much nicer feeling than these. These are that superwash merino with the nylon, and it has a little bit more of a slightly synthetic feel, but I should probably wear them to see how they hold up. I'm sure that they will hold up pretty well. So this 3rd pair of socks, I think I made another pair from a circular workshop knitting book that I wear as slippers, but I kind of don't count those. So here are my socks. Let's see. This is Sauber Ball Crazy. I'm knitting them on double points. These are actually my signature double points in a 2.25. I bought these years and years ago, and I hadn't really used them that much, but I was curious to see if it would speed up my knitting. And I do think these aluminum needles, they're very, very fast. The stitches just slide right off the needles. But then they also have this texture, I think you can hear it, that gives you a little bit of a grip. So they don't quite, like stainless steel, sometimes stitches will just fly off. And I'm pretty far along. I turned the heel, did the gusset, and I'm well on my way of doing the foot. And I think I'm a top-down heel flap and gusset girl. I think I like this, and double points, kind of a traditional way to make a sock. I have what Kate Atherley calls a peasant foot. I have a very square foot. And I just feel that heel flap and gusset, rather than the short row heel, is going to probably fit my heel a little bit better. So yeah, I'm working on those. Yeah, those are the two knitting projects that I have on the go. Nothing major, nothing big right at the moment. All right, let's talk about spinning. If you watched last week's little, I called it kind of a soulful spinning bonus content. It was just me preparing and spinning some wool that I had received from Susan over at Wild Cottage Craft. Susan, I think she was born in the States, but she's been living in Ireland, the west coast of Ireland, for quite a while. I think that's because she came and visited family. So she asked me if I was interested in spinning some Clador fiber. Clador was a heritage breed in Ireland that was thought extinct, but they've taken these this small flock of sheep in Donegal. I think it's in the Connemara region, the west coast of Ireland, and they've done some DNA analysis, and they see that some of the sheep have a unique DNA that might harken back to this Clador breed, and the name means shore dwelling. So I guess during the famine and after the famine, they were sort of pushed to the sea. They're very small sheep, and their carcass quality is not that good. Supposedly they were raised for wool. That was their primary purpose. And on the Clador website, I read something really funny about how some of the women, if they needed a bit of wool to finish a project, they would go to the hillside, grab one of the sheep, and just clip off what they needed and then use it. And then so you'd often see sheep that were partially sheared, which I thought was sort of is something that I would probably do. Yeah, I thought that was funny. So I spun it into a 2-ply woolen yarn. It's very, very fuzzy. It has some hemp fibers in it. It has a very crisp hand, not next to skin soft, I would say. I heard from one of the ladies that's involved in this project of they're trying to regenerate the breed, and she told me via Instagram that some maybe some black-faced rams got in with the ewes, and so they're working on improving the quality and maybe doing some selective breeding, but it's quite an undertaking, I can understand. So she says that there might be some black-faced, basically a hill breed in this. So I don't know if this would really be representative of what Clador was in the old days. And also Susan doesn't know what part of the sheep this fiber came from. So if it's like a Shetland, you're going to have a variety of fiber types throughout the animal's body. So I would not say that this is representative of the breed, but it was certainly a lot of fun. I ran it through my peasant combs. I have a set of they're like flat combs by Robin Russo, and I used those sort of in lieu of a picker. I don't have a picker. A picker is a picker. They come in a couple of varieties, but a picker is one type is a swing picker where it's got all these nails, and you put the fiber in there, and it opens up the fiber and removes, helps all the veg matter come out. And then there's a box picker, and I don't have one. I won't say I don't want one, but never say never when it comes to fiber arts. But I used my peasant combs just to clean up the fiber. I put it, and then I just grabbed the tufts of wool, and I hand carded it into Rolex with my Howard hand cards. And actually, the carding process was so easy, and it made the most beautiful rolls, very airy and open, and just classic Rolag, which is a roll of fiber. And then I spun it using the English woolen method, which is a double drafting, or it's actually an unsupported long draw. I'm going to talk a little bit about terminology when I get to my books for today. But yeah, I did it. I did a double drafting. You spin, you pull out a roving. It's unsupported. It's not. It's like a big slub, and then you pull it apart. You attenuate it with your hands, and then you put it onto the bobbin. Creates a very lofty and fuzzy yarn. So yeah, it's a real woolly wool. It's got a lot of loft, and it's crunchy. I would say, yeah, I think I could wear this on my feet, maybe in a mitten, but I think it would be, the hairs would poke me if I made a hat out of it. So what I was thinking of doing is using this with some black Welsh Mountain that I'm almost done spinning. And I also have some North Ronaldsy. And I was thinking of getting my loom. I have a loom over here. I have a shocked flip loom. I think it's the 25-inch one. And I want to clear off the project that's on there and maybe do a weaving project. So I have to check my yardage. I don't have very much of this. So, but I have 100 grams of the Black Welsh Mountain and 100 grams of North Ronaldsy. And I thought it would be fun to do sort of like a plaid piece of fabric and then full it a little bit. When a fulling means you sort of partially felt the wool, washing it in warm water and agitating it a wee bit. So yeah, I'm thinking of mixing it with two other UK, well, Ireland, it's not the UK, but two other regional yarns and maybe making a plaid like white, gray, and black. So what do you think of that idea? I think it's a good one. I have a lot of natural. I mean, I could even put this in there. This is a Shetland, which is slightly darker. All right, from my bookshelf this week, I have two books. I bought both books from Abe Books. Abe Books is an online used bookstore. Both these books are out of print, and I went on. I searched all the thrift books and all the used bookstores, and only Abe Books had a copy of this for a reasonable price. A couple weeks ago, I talked about Merino. And this is Margaret Stove's classic now book on Merino, hand spinning, dyeing, and working with Merino and superfine wools. Margaret also has there's a DVD. I purchased a downloadable content off Interweave Press, but now I think part of Long Thread Media. You can watch Margaret Stove's method of spinning superfine wool. And this book is now like $75, $100, like people, because it's out of print. I got it for $4.99 US dollars, and the shipping was $8. So the shipping was actually more money than the book, but it's in really, really good condition. I'll talk about a little bit more about this in a moment. And then the other book is Spinning for Softness and Speed by Paula Simmons. I've got a bunch of flags here bookmarked for you. And this one, I think I got this for 20 US dollars, so it was a bit more. Sunrise Printing, Chilliwack, British Columbia. And this one is autographed by Paula, and it says, "Spin softly, Paula." This is the second printing. It was printed, oh no, this is the third printing. So it was originally copyright 1982. This is the third printing. And it really felt like it was practically brand new. I have a theory. I suspect that somebody was in a workshop with Paula and she bought the book, or maybe the book was part of the workshop, because I know Paula does a lot of teaching, or did a lot of teaching, and she signed it for her. That's what I think. And then it was on some spinner's bookshelf, and then it ended up in the used bookstore. This is a really interesting book, and I got a lot of really good tips that I think are going to improve my long draw spinning. So it's kind of funny, these two books are really on completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Margaret is small batch, super fine merino, hand wash it by the lock, spin it so that the drafting triangle is transparent, and she spins just gossamer singles, plies them together, and knits these amazing pieces. She was commissioned to make a shawl for His Royal Highness William when he was born, and she's just the I would say foremost authority on spinning for a superfine gossamer merino. I think she's in New Zealand, and she uses the Saxon strain of merino. The book, again, is in super duper condition. I mean, there's no wear whatsoever in the book, just a little bit of pencil markings in here. But in this book, she has a history of merino wool. She has she has a chapter on preparing techniques for spinning singles, wheel adjustments, and spinning from the tip. So she flick cards. I don't even know if she flick cards. I think that she washes the locks in formation in these mesh. You can either wash them in mesh bags in lock formation, but she has this technique of taking a fingers width staple and washing it on a bar of soap, and then just laying them out to dry. And she has very specific instructions on how not to touch the wool when it's wet. And then she fans out. She removes the tips, and she fans out, and she spins really, really thin. And her technique is such that she has this method of straightening the crimp as she's spinning, so that it maintains its elasticity. You can, if you're interested in her spinning, I think YouTube's got a little clip of her instructional video, and you could go probably to Long Thread Media or Interweave Press and purchase the video and get a lot of the same information. So yeah, so really small. I think, she only needs, 100 grams, or, it's such a tiny, tiny amount because she spins super, super thin. There's a picture in here I thought I would share with you. This is a complete wedding ensemble of hand-spun, hand-woven gown, hand-knitted coat, and hand-spun, hand-knitted veil. So this is all hand-spun. Well, here's a little set of booties and bonnets for baby. Super fine, super delicate. If you're interested in super fine gossamer spinning, I would highly recommend, if you could manage to get a copy of the book. I don't know, maybe they would think about reprinting. I can't imagine spending $100 on it, but she does have patterns in the back. But one that I thought was really pretty, especially pretty and pretty accessible, is this one here. It's a merino and silk stole. So it's a merino and silk blended, spun together. And here's Margaret when she was much younger. And there's a little piece of how she's spinning from the tip. Really, really interesting. Now the other book I have, this one is all about Paula's one-handed technique for spinning wool. She is a proponent of the long draw type of spinning where your hand stays ahead of the twist at all times. And so she trains people to not use I hold my wool in my right hand. She wants people to use their free hand as little as possible. Not that you don't use it, because sometimes you need to draft out a slub or you need something to draft against. But the whole idea of it is to spin this continuous long draw out so that the wheel is doing all the drafting for you. And it's very, very fast and very quick. And the thing that really resonated with me is when she talks about holding fiber. So here's a little bit of fin roving I have that I carded up. So her recommendation, I thought I would share this with you because it was sort of revelatory to me. They always say that you should hold your fiber like a baby bird, etc. But she says to keep these three fingers pretty much off the wool most of the time, and to hold the fiber with your pinky finger and your ring finger and have it go across your palm. And when she first teaches newbies to do this, she has them keep their palm up, but you can also, turn it sideways. And what you can do is you can actually feel the fibers pulling and being drawn out from your fiber mass. It's because your palm is very sensitive here. And I found that to be really, really useful. I mean, I thought I knew what I was doing. I'm a pretty proficient long draw spinner, but I always feel like I could never quite manage the one-handed altogether, and that's because if you slow down a little bit, you lose the flow. But anyway, in her book here, she's got our how to spin without looking, correct hand position. So here's your correct hand position here. Yeah, you feel it in your palm. feeling the twist. Go really fast. There we go. Sometimes she says you have to use your finger, and right at the end, you know. Basic idea is to spin without looking. So just kind of go by feel. I'm not looking here. Try to close your eyes. Sometimes I try to close my eyes and do it. Try to do this without looking. Just feeling the fiber in my hands. It's like magic. Here's a picture of Paula on the back. You can see how she's holding the wool. And she's a hoot, kind of, really. She's all about making yarn very, very fast for spinning and for knitting and weaving. So, you know, just really fast. She has another book about selling your hand spun. And so I imagine if you're selling hand spun, you want to be able to make yarn really, really fast. So she goes in, this book is readily available on used bookstores. If you're interested in this type of spinning, I highly recommend that you pick up a copy. She does say that it's easier to teach this method to newer spinners before certain habits have been ingrained. So, you know, if you've been spinning with an inchworm style for, 20 years, for you to let go and do this one-handed long sweep of the arm, it's a little bit harder. Not impossible, obviously, but I think that's the reason I picked it up, is because I didn't really, when I first started spinning, I was pretty much self-taught through books, and it just sort of came natural to me. I just, that idea of, it just seemed a lot quicker. So yeah. So what else does she say? Keep your thumb off the wool. Yeah, she gives you a lot of really, really good tips. She recommends carding with a drum carder and not using hand. She says she tells people, what did she say about, I do discourage the use of hand cards any more than is absolutely necessary. Several people I know have surgery on the tendon sheaths of their thumbs from the overuse of hand cards. Hand cards are most useful in demonstrating at fairs or colonial restorations and in showing basic wool skills to children. So she's get a good drum carder, and she also uses a picker, and she said you can just use this method with pick blocks as well. She does say you have to have very clean wool. In the section she has in here about washing, it's kind of hilarious. It's just like the exact opposite of like Margaret Stove. She basically says to wash as much wool as possible at a time for efficiency. I can't remember where that was at. Wool washing. Yeah. The ideal arrangement is to spend as little time as possible in the wash in washing the largest amount that is convenient. This means less time is spent on drudgery, leaving more time for spinning. If you wash 1 pound at a time, you are spending nearly as much time on it as it would require to wash 25 pounds. You could have done it all at once in a little more than twice the time. And so she recommends 20-gallon portable laundry tubs, and fill the tub to within 6 inches of the top with very hot water and dissolve in it about 10 cups of detergent. This is equal to about 42-ounce boxes. This is add water, softener for your blah, blah, blah. So pull your fleeces apart and shake a portion of the time. Shake out any seeds or dirt. Then push down into the sudsy water. Keep putting in the wool until the tub has all that it will hold, up to 20 or 30 pounds. I'm a small, I wash 8 ounces to a pound at a time. That is until you can push down on the top of the wool and not even get a puddle. Leave the wool soaking in this hot sudsy water for several hours to loosen dirt and grease. Try not to let it cool down, etc., etc. And then she has a section in here. She tells you don't sort the wool. It is not necessary to sort a fleece out into different grades, even though there are different grades of wool from the various parts of the same fleece. The difficulty in that kind of sorting is that keeping the parts of the fleece separate require a lot of extra work. So you get the idea. Efficiency, quick preparation, and fast spinning. And she recommends you try to spin as fast as possible. It is relaxing, the method. In the appendix, she talks about spinning styles. The inch, she has basically five. She thinks there's 5 primary ways to spin. One being the inchworm, which everybody knows. The short draw, which is pinch, pull back, let draw on. The long draw, that's your typical long draw where I think some people call this American long draw, where you're using this is my freehand. Your freehand, sort of a staccato motion, controlling the twist and drafting out. It's pretty much my preferred method. I think some people call that American long draw. And then she talks about the unsupported long draw. So I think that there's been a misunderstanding, because I always thought that unsupported means that you're spinning with one hand. That's not what she says. She says unsupported long draw is double drafting, also known as double drafting. She even has a picture here of the unsupported long draw, where you pull out a big slub and then you attenuate, which basically is the English woolen method. Do you agree with her? I don't know. That was sort of revelatory to me. What else? Oh, you get a kick out of this. She talks about projects for soft yarn, and she says you don't have to ply. Of course, you could knit. She addresses fuzzing and pilling. But then she goes on to talk about weaving. And she refers to the Spin, Span, Spun book by Betty Hochberg. That mill-spun yarn has only been around for about 200 years, and spinning is at least 10,000 years old, so weavers had nothing but handspun for 90-some centuries. This means that warp as well as weft was handspun. Okay. So she says, but can you use soft one-ply handspun for warp? Yes. I happen to like a soft warp, so this is all that I use. But what she does is she uses sizing, which is basically an animal glue. It's these, I'm sure you can buy it still, where you you put sizing, like a canvas. You size the wool, and then you can use it as warp. But she says, I had been spinning for about 5 years when I read that you cannot use one-ply handspun for warp, but I had been doing it for almost 5 years, so I was told too late. Even Wool Gatherings says that single-ply handspun wefts are satisfactory, but that a single-ply handspun warp is not satisfactory. Now, when anyone says you cannot, I usually think perhaps they cannot, but someone who really wants to may find a way to make it work. There are 10 commandments, but none of them have a thing to do with wool and spinning. So, yeah. I laughed out loud with that. It's so cute. So cute. So yeah, I mean, this was really, really interesting. It's just, you just got two ends of the spectrum. It's like what, they say, Judith McKenzie talks about the hands and heart of a woolen spinner, or the hands and heart of a worsted spinner. And I think you just have a natural inclination to go to one spectrum or the other, depending on, your personality and what kind of yarn you like to work with. So yeah, two books highly recommend. This one is pretty much hard to find, but this one is readily available. And there's a lot more information than I have indicated here in my little review. All right, so shall we talk about acquisitions? Since I actually last did a sit-down with you, a new spindle has come my way. Let me find it here. No, I put it in here, didn't I? Where's it? Yeah, here it is. A new spindle came my way. Here it is. This is a Texas Jeans spindle. Texas Jeans is a gentleman that lives in Texas. His name is Joshua. And all of his work is very, very precision oriented, very, very fast. He calls this a Vaza style, I think, because this looks like a base. And I'm spinning just a little bit of Pygora on here. So yeah, isn't it pretty? Yeah, I was surprised. I was on Etsy, and I thought, I wonder if Joshua's got any spindles. Everybody's buying support spindles now, thanks to other podcasters and stuff talking about them, which is great. But there's like less for people to buy. I'm like, don't hog all the spindles, you guys. No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, so I was really, really happy that I picked this one up. I have a couple of his, and they're just wonderful, wonderful spinners. So that came my way within the last couple of weeks. What else? Oh, I received a gift. Let me go grab it real quick. I received a gift from a viewer. Her name is Anna. And her shop is the Spectrum Yarns Etsy. Sorry for the crinkling. And she reached out to me and asked me if I wanted any East Frisian, yeah, East Frisian, which is I think it's a milk breed. I guess she works, this fiber is not from her sheep, but rather it's from the Black Sheep Creamery. And what she does is helps out every year with the shearing, with the skirting and the shearing of the fleeces. And she gets to pick out a fleece to take home. And she asked me, very kindly asked me if I wanted any. And of course I said yes. I never say no to wool. So this is it's a gray. The gray is my favorite. She sent me some gray and she sent me some white. And this gray is especially lovely. It's a very, it really reminds me of a downy breed, a hill breed. Sort of a little bit of a disorganized crimp structure, about 3.5 inches. Beautiful shades of gray and super easy. And it's washed too. She sent it to me washed, which is extra nice. You can see the crimp structure on there, I think. Let me see, let me cover up my face here. See the crimp structure. Really, really beautiful, and I think I'm going to hand card this into Rolex because it's not a huge amount. I didn't weigh it, but here's some cleaned up locks that I just kind of pulled off my combs, and then what I'll do is I'll make my carded. But I don't know. I think if I flick the tips and place them on the hand cards, it'll be really easy to card this up. It's got a really nice crimp structure, really pretty. I would say, it's definitely a medium wool. It'd be I'm thinking it would be great in socks. I think it would be soft, and the loft of it would really and the elasticity would give your socks longevity. So she gave me that, and then she also sent me some white here. Again, it's from Black Sheep Creamery. I'll put a link to her shop and also the Black Sheep Creamery in the description. And this is white. So, definitely not a coated fleece. But again, this is washed. It is a little bit tippy. It's got dirty tips here, which is, and I'm thinking I can flick those, or I could even take a pair of scissors and cut off the tips, which I think I might do. Margaret says it's okay. So does Judith McKenzie. So I think you can use scissors on your wool. So yes, I am going to make 2 of my Berlin blanket squares. I think I'll do a white Frisian and then also the gray, and that will add 2. So yeah, if you're new, all through the winter, I had a weekly vlog where I showcased a different breed, and I ended up with 15 squares. I'll insert a little video here. Last week I had them all out on the table and everything, but I didn't record last week, but I'll put in a little video here so you could see them all. I have 15. I figure I need 60 at least to make a decent sized blanket. So yeah, I think every time I get a new wool, I'm going to make a blanket, a square. But this is too thick, I think, for that. I've been making them out of a sport weight hand spun, and this is definitely more of a worsted. So yeah, so I got that, came to me. And then also just today, the mailman brought something. Inglenook Fibers had an update, I think last Saturday. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get any of her stickle bats because those go like, really, really quickly. But I did go over there and I bought a few things. I must have had Easter and spring on the brain when I picked these out. Or she did. So this one is called Impatient, Merino Mulberry 60/40. It matches my shirt, as you can see. Beautiful. This is a sampler set of some custom blended top that she got from the mill. And it's called Ethereal Blend. 1/2 ounce each, 4 ounce total. It's Rambouillet, Merino Silk, Baby Alpaca, and 10% tweed or sari. And I thought these would be really nice to spindle spin. I got those for spindle spinning. And then the third thing I got is this organic Polworth, which is beautiful. It's called Alyssum, which is a lavender color. Pretty. I tend to go with tonal braids when I buy hand-dyed fiber, and actually it's pretty true. So I'm going to open up, actually, I got stuff everywhere, you guys. I'm going to open up one of these, maybe this one. So this is Ethereal Blend. This is one of the samples. It's pretty. So yeah, I think this would be so pretty too. Spindle spin. It's almost like her little stickle bats. It's just combed prep instead of carded. 1/2 ounce is perfect for spindle. hope you enjoyed this episode of Soulful Spinning. I will see you again next week with another video on my fiber adventures. And until then, happy spinning, happy crafting, and take care. We'll see you very soon. Bye for now.